So, the greatest movie I've ever seen, I think it's the greatest movie ever made, is Memento by Christopher Nolan. Came out May 25th of 2000. Um, I don't believe there's a close second. I've I have a lot of movies. I'm going to try to do more of these, um, where I have some theories I've developed over many years about certain films. I have some theories about the straight story, some theories about the Road Warrior that I might hope to do some videos on those too. I'll watch them again and do that. But I just watched Memento, and Memento is just it's just on another level. So I have a theory, and I develop new theories every time I watch it. I'll just let you know a little bit about me. I do not read forums about movies. I don't go and look for analysis on YouTube or anywhere else. I do, however, like to watch maybe and hear some things Nolan says about his films. I will say that this is the highest compliment I can pay Memento. I have not seen a movie more than Empire Strikes Back. I've watched that movie, I could not tell you so many times. But at a certain point, you've seen a movie so many times, it's refreshing to watch it with a commentary. And Irving Kershner did his commentary of Empire Strikes Back. It was very insightful, learned a lot. I set out today to watch Memento with Nolan's commentary, and it only lasted 5 minutes. It wasn't even 5 minutes. It got into some of the black and white scenes, and I had to watch the movie. I didn't want to hear what he was saying. So no, I want to see the movie. I mean, this is a 22-year-old film come this spring, and I still do not want to listen to his commentaries on it. I will one day, but right now, I'm just like, I know I want to watch the movie and it's too entrancing of a film. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration. Maybe no film is entrancing. You get my idea here. So I want to talk a little bit here about how to interpret films and the difference between a theory and fan fiction. Now, this might be just a part one of two parts about Memento and about my newest theory about it. But I want you to be very clear. This theory is not fan fiction. This is not fan fiction. Now, what am I talking about? Well, when you're doing a theory, you try to leave you want as much of it tied into the actual object in question, whether that be a book or a movie or poetry or whatever. You may also want to know some historical context, and you want to know authorial intent. And you want to keep it to those three things as much as possible. So, for example, in Memento, it'd be nice for someone to know what a Polaroid is. If you don't know what a Polaroid is, it's hard to understand the significance of some of the things that's happening. For example, when the movie's going in, parts of the movie are going in reverse. And so the Polaroid, instead of coming into focus, is going out of focus. If you don't know what a Polaroid is, you don't know what that is necessarily. And the Polaroids are going out of focus. They're fading instead of developing, which is a allegory for Leonard's memory. And it's also allegory for the audience's memory. The audience is also suffering from short-term memory loss because the movie's going in reverse. The whole movie you're going, I don't know what just happened, which is the same thing's happened to Leonard. That was the first thing I noticed about this movie. When I first went to the theater 5 times to watch this. And the first time I went, I remember seeing his scars on his face and thinking, well, where did those come from? And one picture that kept saying, don't believe Teddy's lies. And I just kept thinking, where do those two things come from? There's only so many things you can kind of latch onto when you see a movie with this high level of detail and complexity. Those are theories about the movie that I'm presenting a theory, not fan fiction. Now, what's fan fiction? Let me give you an example of that. Fan fiction is when it goes outside of the scope of those elements to try to arrive at understanding of what the movie is. Because if you go outside of those elements, you end up with some conjecture that you can't quite, sometimes movies want you to have conjecture. Okay, and Memento is absolutely no exception. It does want you, it's leaving some things open to interpretation. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But if a movie is pretty plain and the author hasn't spoken to something, right? Or there's no history to give you context of what's going on, like a Polaroid, knowing what a Polaroid is, or knowing what an answering machine is, which is also a Memento. Knowing that people didn't have cell phones. They did, but it was very rare. Even drug dealers didn't have them necessarily. Although back then, if you had a cell phone, you were considered a drug dealer or very rich. You enter into fan fiction at that point when you kind of go off the rails, as it were. So what do I mean by fan fiction here? Let me get to this. I've got a great example. Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord. That would be a great example of a fan fiction masquerading as a theory. Well, it's still a theory, but it's always postured as the true meaning of Jar Jar Binks. And that has never actually been substantiated. If you don't know about this, you should watch videos on YouTube about this. It's really fascinating. Now, you may say, well, you're contradicting yourself, Travis. I thought you didn't watch anything like this. Well, I'm talking about for movies like Memento, where you're really supposed to spend years watching it and thinking about it. You don't have to do that with Jar Jar Binks. So I have no problem with reading about Jar Jar Binks or anything like that. Not that I spent a lot of time doing that. Okay, so what's the problem with that? There's no problem with it. It's fine. In fact, it's absolutely fascinating. And the theory is that Jar Jar Binks was a Sith Lord, and he was an agent of chaos, and the things he did caused the fall of the Republic and everything. The problem is, as far as I know, this has never been substantiated by George Lucas. So authorial intent is really important here. Now, what that will tell you is, well, Lucas had to change the narrative going into the second movie because Jar Jar was hated so much, and he should have stuck to his guns. Well, again, not substantiated. Maybe there were changes that he had to make, but as I recall, he wanted Lawrence Kasdan to write the second movie, and he wasn't available. That's what was going on. So, I don't believe that's a legitimate theory in terms of the authorial intent. Okay, I don't believe that George Lucas, it's always foisted on him that was his intentions. Now, some directors choose to remain silent about their intentions. But Star Wars is such a straightforward series. I don't think George Lucas has to remain silent about these kind of things. I could be wrong. Maybe there's evidence to the contrary. But that's as far as I know. But anyway, that would be a good example of what I wouldn't call a theory about what this element of the movie is actually about. It's more of a fiction about what it's about. All right, so that gives you an idea of what I'm tying everything into for Memento. So I will do a part 2 tomorrow. This part 1 was just kind of as an introduction to what I'm going to talk about. I will tell you this, because I don't read forums and I don't really watch videos on this, other than what Christopher Nolan's put out there, this could be a theory that's already been discussed, and I apologize for that if that's the case. This could be, when you first hear it, you're going to go, well, yeah, but it's more complex than it sounds. And I would just do a 30, 40-minute video on this, and you can listen to this on your way to work or something, almost like a podcast. But unfortunately, I just don't have time. I'm out of time today. So, because I spent most of my day watching Memento and writing notes down. It's that kind of movie. So, and I found out a lot of things just tons of things I never knew before about a bunch of different things. I had to stop taking notes. I'm like, I can't talk about everything that goes on in this movie. There's just, and learning all these new things. And I'm like, and I've seen the movie so many times, I'm learning new things every single time I watch it. So, I'm going to leave it at that. And if you have not seen Memento, if you have an opportunity between now and my video tomorrow and you've never seen it, I really could not recommend it more. It is an incredible film. And I will do my big reveal. Yeah, I'll do my big reveal about what my theory is, which the theory itself is not a big deal. It's really not. But it's the argument that leads to what my theory is that could be pretty interesting. And hopefully something that anyone watches this in posterity hasn't heard before. So, talk to you then.